In the last episode, we saw that our protagonist is in search of the Jewel of Truth, which he needs to change the course of the future to save everyone. That Jewel of Truth is inside the Sea of Mermaids. He takes the help of mermaids to dig up the place and comes across a keyhole. The keyhole needs a key to get the Jewel of Truth. Our protagonist finds out that the key might be inside the stomach of a giant octopus. The octopus is shouting in pain, creating giant tides in the sea, and everyone is worried. Lloyd thinks to himself that he has to first cure the indigestion of that octopus. After that, anything else can be done. Then our protagonist starts to remember how he cured the indigestion when he had it last time. In the next scene, the image of his parents comes into our protagonist's mind. His father says that indigestion is pretty severe. Our protagonist, in his real body of Kim Suho, says that he wants to puke but it's not coming out. His father says he will do something about it as our protagonist is shouting in pain. His father brings a knife, and he is going to poke his finger with a knife. Which makes Kim frightened, and he says that it's not poking, it's called killing. Father replies that he was joking. Then his dad takes out a needle and pokes it into the protagonist's hand. He mentions how the protagonist's blood is thick and might be the reason for his indigestion and then asks him how he feels. The protagonist says that he doesn't know, but he is not feeling better. But the father only picks the word better and gets happy that the protagonist is already feeling better, but the Lloyd's mom interrupts and says that she saw in the television that this method doesn't work for indigestion. His mom tells his dad to step aside and tells our protagonist that he has puked everything out and then asks our protagonist if he trusts her. And then takes out a giant fist and punches on the stomach of our protagonist. Our protagonist pukes everything out, and he starts to feel better. Now back to the current scene, we see that the octopus is really shouting in pain. The protagonist wonders if that same method would work on Octopus and questions the legitimacy of this method. Then he suddenly remembers his mother telling him that whether it's legitimate or not, you have to experience it yourself. With that, our protagonist faces Javier and asks him to use Aura Blast on the octopus and tells him force should be weak enough so it won't pierce through the tentacles of the octopus. But we see, Javier is quite busy to do that, as he is holding the entire base of the mermaids, but we see the mermaid queen asking all the mermaids to charge and take the hold of the base. All the mermaids start using their entire stamina on the base to hold it. Since all the mermaids are taking care of the mermaid base, Javier flies with his magical wings and use the Aura Blast and hit on one of the tentacles of the octopus. The hit on the tentacles of the octopus makes the octopus burp. Our protagonist is happy with the result as that is definitely working. Burp is only the first step. Our protagonist then takes out his pets to give the final hit on Octopus's tentacles. But we can see that the pets of our protagonist are struggling to breathe because they are not in the clothes of the protagonist, so they don't have the protection of the necklace which is letting him survive underwater. He tells them to end this quickly, otherwise, they will not survive, because of the lack of oxygen. In the next scene, all the pets of Lloyd are using their powers on the tentacles of the octopus. With that, the octopus finally pukes everything out, and we see something coming out of his stomach, that might be the key to blueprint of Jewel of Truth. The Jewel of Truth is in the shape of a seahorse. Javier goes and picks the item, and Lloyd says that they finally got it and cherishes. We see that the octopus has burped, and suddenly a message box opens and we see, our protagonist gets a new title. The title is Sea Village Doctor, and the title effects are that our protagonist can breathe freely underwater, and he can use the special skill called Stomach Short. We see that the octopus is completely cured. We can see the message box again, which tells that with the special stomach shot, which gives him power to strike the stomach of any living organism underwater and cause them to vomit everything they have in their stomach with just one hit. Now since the octopus has been cured, it quickly grabs the island of mermaids. In the next scene we see Lloyd holding the Jewel of Truth, but suddenly a mermaid comes to him and tells him that on closer look he looks manly. It surprises our protagonist. She compliments him by telling how he is the one who has increased the strength of the mermaid by giving them a bath house and also protected their home. All the mermaids begin to cherish our protagonist. The message board pops up again, telling that our protagonist has unlocked race, and the ancient octopus and the mermaid have accepted our protagonist as a friend, and our protagonist gets a bonus RP, and now the current RP of our protagonist is 2565. The message board then continues to say that even though our protagonist has caused a problem to begin with, but before it continues further, our protagonist is already on the 7th sky. To that reaction the message board says that the protagonist has zero conscience. Our protagonist is confused and asks what's wrong. The message board tells that our protagonist is pretending like he has zero fault in this. Our protagonist starts to act clueless to that. Then we see the old mermaid queen comes and grabs the hand of our protagonist thanking him for what he did. The protagonist thinks that he didn't know what to do, but he just tried the different methods as suggested by his mother, and then he thanked his mother and father. The notification bar pops up again and says if that's what he thinks, and his parents would be more thankful to him as well. Lloyd becomes quite angry on this and says that this time the notification bar has crossed its line because his parents are already dead. How could the notification bar say something like that towards them? To which the notification bar says Protagonist looks quite angry. The protagonist says yes because after hearing that sentence he feels regret that he could not do more for his parents who are already dead. But Lloyd decides he won't look back and he must protect his current family. He takes the jewel of truth and then fixes the key inside that keyhole. Keyhole suddenly emits bright light and we see an entire diagram of a pyramid-like structure. He thinks to himself that the pyramid looks exactly like Goguryeo General's tomb, a building that narrows down the higher it's built to support the structure. The message board tells him to scan the blueprint and save the information of Aotearoa, which is the name of the truth jewel. Our protagonist scans the entire thing and then he takes a look at the blueprint. We see the message bar show some list of cone materials. The protagonist is surprised, because he didn't expect that he needs to get more materials, and the message board shows the first material named Toranga and asks him that does he want to view the record of Toranga? One of the mermaids asks Javier that has Lloyd lost his mind because our protagonist is typing in the air. It is because they cannot see the message bar. To which Javier replies no, he has already lost his mind from the start and he can't lose it again. Our protagonist thought that he was already done with the work, but it turns out he has a lot yet to do. He asks Javier to leave with him as they are short in time. Javier asks where are they going? Our protagonist says that they are going to Magnetano's palace. The Toranga can be found in the palace of Magnetano. The scene shifts to the palace. Queen Magnetano is sitting at a desk, and she is worried, and her eyes are becoming red and her hands are trembling, and we can see her blood veins popping from her hands as she takes off the gloves. She says how much more she has to bear and thinks that she should not become weak and she can do this. She is the queen, the strongest person in the country. A servant comes and tells that he would like to report the trade negotiations of the southern countries. The queen tells him to proceed. He tells her that all the countries have formed an alliance and ignored all the negotiations made from the end of our queen and they have only made unreasonable requests to them. The queen is surprised by that. The servant continues and tells that even the other countries are slowly starting to propose bad conditions. The queen thinks that it can be because of the banquet in which the Bone Dragon defeated the Queen Magnetano. Although they have subdued the Bone Dragon, people think that they are lying because the corpse of the dragon was not shown. It is because our protagonist has made the dragon his pet. She thinks that if the things go like this, even the nobles will begin to challenge her authority and this political strife will cause her authority to drop and she doesn't see how she can do anything about this. Right now she wonders how can she overcome it and says to herself that she shouldn't be weak, she is the queen and queen must not be weak. Suddenly another servant comes and tells her that Lloyd has requested an audience. That shines the eyes of the queen, and she rushes to meet him. The guards are surprised by this action of the queen, as the queen herself is running like a normal person towards our hero Lloyd Frontera. She thinks to herself that annoying human, the human that already escaped her grasp and the one who does whatever he wants. She goes and gives him a tight hug, and thinks the human that she needs the most right now. Lloyd is suddenly surprised by this action. But we realize the queen was dreaming about all this, but her dream is ended by greetings of Lloyd, and we see our queen is sweating. The queen asks Lloyd to repeat what just said, because she was already lost in her thoughts. Lloyd says that it's nothing and they had just greeted her, but she didn't say anything so they greeted her again. Our protagonist makes weird face and thinks why was the queen running so quickly, but the queen is speechless. Queen makes an angry and frustrated face which is noticed by Javier, and then he makes a side eye and looks toward our protagonist. He realizes something and thinks to himself this is even more unbelievable than Kim Suho becoming an archangel. The queen asks Lloyd what he needs from her. To which Lloyd says that he would like to take some pillars from the palace. The queen is surprised by this request, but our hero says that in return he will quickly solve all the problems she has with the neighbors. The chapter ends here. No one has posted this series on the entire YouTube. I am posting it ASAP, next video will come after 5 hours. Make sure to subscribe because I will literally post the latest video before anyone on the entire YouTube so you don't miss out.